Hello, everybody, and welcome to Frankenstein's podcast. We're a creature feature podcast about monsters and why we love them. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Praska, and with me is...
your other host, Khalid Hussein.
Good morning, Khalid. Happy Valentine's Day.
Aw, happy Valentine's Day to you too, Joe. Good morning.
Thanks. We're a little off the norm today, recording in the morning, which for the reason being is we are in three different time zones. So you and I, of course, are Pacific time and Central time here in the U.S., but we have a very special guest who I'm just about to bring in here, who's phoning in all the way from the U.K. I wanted to welcome Basma Ghalayani, who is an editor, writer, and Arabic translator and interpreter currently working with Comma Press, publishing house out of Manchester, UK. She edited the book Palestine Plus 100, which asks 12 Palestinian writers, what might your country look like in the year 2048, a century after the tragedies and trauma of what has come to be called the Nakba. So welcome, Basma.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. This is, I just wanted to say for the listeners real quick, this is going to be kind of a different podcast. We always talk about creatures, monsters, we get in the genre space, and we'll be in a genre space. But I found your book, Palestine Plus 100, a while back, and reading through it, I was just struck by the stories were just really fascinating, really cool, really interesting and enlightening in a lot of ways, very tragic as well. But just how that genre space that we like to talk about is realized through these Palestinian writers. And so I just felt compelled to reach out, and I'm really glad that you were available to make it. So anyway, we have a couple new guest questions for you, Basma, for joining us. I think I sent those to you in advance. Are you feeling ready?
Yeah, as ready as I'll ever be.
Right. I get that. So I'm since we are a creature feature podcast, we'll get a little nerdy at first. And so in any realm of pop culture, what do you kind of consider your favorite like monster or creature?
The word favorite, I would say I'm fascinated. I'm very, very fascinated by a creature called El Jathum. And this creature exists in all cultures or all languages. And I came across it when I was around 15, 16, reading a young YA series called Beyond Nature, and it was written by an Egyptian writer, Ahmed Khalid Tawfiq, and you don't get much access to YA in Arabic. So when this came up, this series started appearing, we all just clung onto it, and he would feature a different monster, a different creature in every story, and the one that stuck with me till recently is called Al Jathum, and it's a creature similar to the incubus or the succubus in the sense that it's said to be the reason for sleep paralysis. So if you're asleep on your back and you can't move at night, it's because this creature's sitting on your chest. And
eerie.
Yeah. And it's just the idea of going to sleep and thinking that there is a creature that's about to just come into the room and be there in the shadows or on your chest is just, I found quite scary and fascinating at the same time. I also found it interesting how it was portrayed slightly differently than the Western incubus. So I only just came across this when I was looking into it recently for your podcast.
That is super fascinating. I'm really curious to check out that like YA series you're talking about too. That sounds awesome.
It's been adapted into a television show actually recently on Netflix. I didn't watch it, but the writer recently passed away, or maybe relatively recently, and it has been adapted on Netflix, and it's subtitled or maybe dubbed into English.
That is fantastic. We will definitely be checking that out for sure.
Absolutely. I love when there's kind of like that parallel thinking of creatures or demons across the world, where it's like there's a lot of similarities between this, or like you're almost like, is it real?
Yeah, definitely.
My next question for you, Basma, is what do you consider yourself kind of most like geeky about? What can you really like just talk about for hours about?
I go through So I wouldn't say I'm consistently geeky about this particular topic, but I would go through intense phases of. So my background is software engineering, and I never worked professionally in it, but I've always been quite fascinated by machines and computers, and
Hmm.
not technology in general, just specifically computers and code. So in life, if I'm working in an office, or if I come across any problem, hardware or software problem, I will delve deep into it and be completely consumed by it, and I would not leave it until I've solved it. And I would want to know how it worked, how I did it. And I will just be researching and looking into the history of this particular problem or this particular cable or the technology of the progression of this particular output. And I would say I get quite geeky in that sense. And people in the office make the most of it because they do know that I can't overhear someone saying that something's not working and not get involved. So that's the closest geeky I'd say I am. I get really obsessive, and it's not. I'm not talking about iPhones and gadgets. That's not at all my area. It's just computer machines or computer software, particularly.
So you have the kind of the heart of a computer engineer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very militant about the idea that just because people can use a phone or know their settings doesn't necessarily mean that. I'm very old school. Doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to work technology. I know that sounds very condescending, but
It's true though. It's
it's
super
very
true.
true.
Yeah. That's
I've
great.
seen it.
Oh yeah, we all have. Yeah, for sure. That's great. I love that. That's awesome. Um, Thank you for answering those questions. I appreciate it. But we'll start kind of moving into like your background and some of the book Palestine Plus 100, which we'll talk about. But I just wanted to ask you, and maybe just for our listeners too, um, you spent some of your formative years in Gaza after living in the UK for some time as a child. Would you be willing to share just a little bit about kind of your life and like your upbringing, and then kind of what brought you to writing?
Of course. I lived in the UK the first 4 years of my life. My parents were medics, and they were traveling. They were studying in the UK, or practicing, sorry, in the UK after having finished their degrees. And I was born, and when I turned 4, they both decided they wanted to go back home to Gaza.
Mm.
So at the age of 4, that's where I was. I went to Gaza, and I was there until 2009 when I was 26, 27. And that's when I decided to come live in the UK. So yeah, and I spent my childhood in Gaza. I spent all different, all my school years, my university. I did my undergraduate there, my software engineering degree there, and I worked for a bit after. And uh, it's pretty much the a solid part of my life, a significant part of my life I
Mm.
spent there. So, and then I came to the UK, and I worked in little bits here and there. But because I spoke both English and Arabic, I found myself gravitating towards interpretation and translation because there was there was demand for that.
Mm.
And in the process, I started doing freelance translation, and I came across Comma Press because I did a couple of freelance translations for a couple of their collections, the Book of Cairo and another book called Banthology. And this is before I started working for them. And I got to know the chief editor, the managing director, the main editor, Raw Page, and then I started working for Comma officially. There was a need for an in-house Arabic editor and an office manager at the same time because technical stuff, finance. I have a background in that, so yeah. So I ended up working for Comma Press, and here I am.
That's awesome. And so Comma Press, like, so I was looking kind of just at the catalog of Comma Press. There's like, they have several collections kind of in the sort of plus 100 like series. Is that right?
Absolutely. So our first collection was called Iraq Plus 100, and just a little overview about the series. it visits a certain country and asks 10 or 12 writers from this country to imagine what their country would look like, or how they perceive their country 100 years from a specific event. So the first of the series was Iraq plus 100, which was edited by Hassan Belasim, and they, we asked, or comma asked the writers to, they commissioned the writers to imagine what the future would be like 100 years from the invasion of Iraq in 2004 or 2003. And that was the first one, Iraq plus 100. Then we did Palestine plus 100. And now we've got Kurdistan plus 100 out, and we're working on Egypt plus 100.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm
Amazing
excited to check
idea
more.
for a series.
Yeah, it was a raw page. He came up with it. He's quite the geek when it comes to science fiction.
Do they kind of like, so it says you kind of do you ask for submissions for the collections, or are they like any works that are already published that you just kind of say, like, we want to include this in the collection, or is it sort of like an open call?
It was with the Iraq one. I know with the Palestinian one, definitely they were all original stories, as in
Okay.
all of them were written specifically for this collection. I'm pretty sure it was the same with the Iraq plus 100 one. So yeah, they were
Okay,
all commissioned specially for this collection. None of them were published anywhere else.
that makes sense. So, Khalid and I both just recently finished a read through of Palestine plus 100, and as I mentioned before, it was just a really great read. It was very engaging, very powerful in a lot of ways. So there was a couple, like, all of the stories, I think, in their own ways are great and bring something interesting and unique to the table. But like a couple that really stuck out to me, one was the first one, "The Song of the Birds," which
Mm-hmm.
kind of kind of imagines like sort of a almost like a parallel utopian world, based out of the sort of imaginations and hopes of ancestors or relatives. And I thought that was a really fascinating kind of like alternate reality take. I also really liked one of the ones that stuck with me too is the Key, which had some really interesting, almost like horror supernatural imagery to it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just think the uniqueness of each story is really cool, and they bring something, a different way to look at like this one singular kind of concept of this 100 years. So I just thought I shared a couple of my favorites. Khalid, did you want to share some of the ones that really stuck out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking, Joe. The Key definitely was an honorable mention for me. I love the chilling idea behind that story, and I think we see that theme kind of reoccurring throughout in a few other stories of just like the idea of like the ghosts of Palestinians will never like leave the place, even if you get rid of like Palestinians, and like what that lingering like guilt even looks like. I think that I saw a lot of comparisons to early American horror that was like really like dealing with like the colonialism of the indigenous population here, and like the idea of like Indian burial grounds being a common motif in like horror films back in the
Mm.
day. So that was a fascinating thing to touch on. And then my personal favorite has to be Application 39. The story of it's I'm very prone to comedy, so like the levity there, the lark of the idea at the beginning of like these two bored hacker brothers uh, entering Gaza into the Olympics and getting it. It's honestly, it's just ripe for like such an amazing idea, and it like really catapults this like great idea. But then like I love that it doesn't really break form with the rest of the stories, where like it's still by the end of it like a somber like reflection on even ostensibly good things or bad things or can be bad things. And um I don't know, it just I'm very touched by like the resilience within these stories, and given everything that's gone on since October 7th, and just like really like put Palestine and Gaza specifically into the global spotlight, it really tracks with like what we've seen in real life, like the characters that have come to life in these stories. I'm a big fan of the book.
Basma, did you have any, like, being the editor, I'm sure like all of them were like great for you, but is there anyone's stories that specifically like really resonated or like felt really affecting for you when you were going through them?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, I don't have favorites in terms of how.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, genuinely speaking, because I chose all the stories, so
Yeah,
they're all equally amazingly written, and the plots are captivating in different ways. But in
for
terms
sure.
of personally, what resonated with me was N by Majd Kayel, and I think that's the third story in the book, might be, but
Hmm.
it's N by Majd Kayel, and the reason I was fascinated by that story is because when the Nakba took place in 1948, now for those who don't know, Nakba is the mass expulsion, forced expulsion of Palestinians that took place in 1948 from their lands, so they can then be so their lands can then be replaced. The inhabitants of their lands can then be replaced by Israelis and to create the state of Israel. And then 750,000 Palestinians were left as refugees. Uh, and that is the 1948, the Nakba, which is what it's called in Arabic, that's
Mm.
the point we chose to for the writers to look 100 years after that point in time. And for me, the reason that the story N resonated with me, or the reason I was very, very interested in it, is because when the Nakba took place, uh, Palestinians went into different directions. Some went to Gaza and the West Bank, so they were locally displaced. Some went to the neighboring countries in refugee camps, and some went to Europe. I think later on they went into Europe. However, there was a percentage of Palestinians who didn't leave. They just, circumstance meant they were able to stay, and those are the Palestinians who stayed on the Palestinian lands, which were then became Israel, but they became technically Israelis on paper,
Mm.
and they obviously identify as Palestinians. They are Palestinians, and I was always fascinated by those who stayed and how the second and third generation of Palestinians they're called the Palestinians of 1948, and I was always curious as to how they coped, what their lives were like, the kind of conflict they must be in. It was just, and I'd met a few of them over the course of my life, and I found I was always thought they must have it the hardest. I mean, you can't really compare suffering, but I always thought I wouldn't want to be in that position, faced by my occupier every single day, having to live by their rules, having to, locally and coexisting. I guess it's not just having to live by their rules, coexisting with them. So
Mm.
Mej's story perfectly reflected that. I mean, it took a few reads, to be honest, because it's just so intricate, and it just perfectly showed that kind of struggle. So the character, there's the rule happening in the story's universe is that there's two parallel universes. He didn't go into the physics of it, obviously, that would just be a
Mm.
bit too much. But there are two parallel universes identical to each other, two parallel Palestines, and you can go from one to the other. One of them is the Palestine before 1948, and one of them is the one that became Israel. And if you were born after a certain time, you can go back and forth to both. And if you were born before 48, then you can only stay in the one you were part of. And that was my favorite story, on a personal level, because it just gave me a lot of insight and measured. The humor in it was really, I thought it was really funny. There's a fisherman and he's got a really funny accent, and it's just all very, yeah. I thought it was perfectly summed up the experience of the Palestinians of 1948 and the suffering and the conflict they go through.
Yeah, it's such a cool way to take those concepts and bring that genre twist to it. Like the couple stories that do explore parallel worlds were really fascinating, I thought.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things I was interested in and reading your the introduction that you wrote for the book, you mentioned that in Palestinian fiction, the idea of like an enemy is largely absent. And you said, I think it was, here's the quote, it's Israelis hardly ever feature as individuals, and when they do, they're rarely portrayed as out and out villains. So my question was kind of, why do you think that is or was, and do you think that notion might change with what we've been kind of seeing now happening lately?
So the absence. Where I was coming from with that was that, okay, just from my personal experience in Gaza up until 2008, it's an occupied territory. But the reason people dispute that, or the reason in the media they say no, it's not occupied, the Israelis withdrew, is because there's no physical presence for the Israelis on the land. They control the airspace, they control the sea space, they control what we eat, what we drink. They control us going in and out. They're there in their watchtowers, behind their technology, kind of just there, but not there. Now, that is one element I meant in terms of the absence of the enemy.
Okay.
But another element of absence I was talking about was the general absence of. So I don't know. All my dad's absent now. He's in Gaza. He's there, and the absence of loved ones, the absence of people, the absence of access to the absence of being able to relate to your memories to physical elements like your grandfather's house that you can't go back to, even though it's just an hour's drive away from you. That kind of absence that I meant. And do I think it applies now? I think it applies more than ever in the sense of the physical absence of things. There's people are losing everything. I mean, just yesterday I found out that the house I grew up in was reduced to rubble, and I mean it's something that I don't know how you come to terms with something like that. We were just in shock all day yesterday thinking about it. So now I'm thinking, you don't really think you get attached to a physical thing until it goes, and then you start realizing, I can't believe how. I just don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's just the absence. In this case, it will be the absence of memories. All my memories, our height markings, our, scrapes on the walls, posters, all of those little things are not going to be there anymore. So just a gap in your physical memory map, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely it does.
And there's the heavy element of absence of people. The absence of people. I have over 30 cousins, and I can't reach, or a lot of them can't reach me. So there's that element of absence too.
We're so sorry for what you're going through.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, we're at that point where there's a hierarchy because there's a lot. This is the best case scenario. So that comes into the element of when you're processing grief. One of the things you're saying, well, thank God I didn't lose half of my family. Thank God my parents are still alive. So it's just, thank you for your sentiment though.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I think that just carrying from what Joe said there, like that really speaks to like the point of the story. And it feels like a primarily like Western or imperialistic like outlook to like really want to dwell on the villain and really want to like go to like such extreme lengths to understand the villain, because we typically have to like accept the fact that like when we're over here in the West and like safe in our homes or safe just like doing what we do, going about our lives, it comes at the expense of like others. And so to be able to like hear these stories from the oppressed, the occupied, and to understand like that preoccupation with villainy is like, it's there for a reason. It's not just like everyone's naturally like, I wonder what the bad guys thinks.
Yeah. It's and it's ironic because in other stories we would be portrayed as the villain, the Palestinians.
I mean, absolutely. Again, Western media is full of instances of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing Khalid too. Just again, sorry for everything, but and I appreciate again throughout all of this too, you taking the time to come join us on our little podcast here and just talk some sci-fi and some other things. But
yeah, I'm just saying it kind of goes to one of the points that you made, is that you process trauma by talking about it, by writing about it, and this podcast actually came in a good time in that sense, because sometimes it helps to just talk about things and that you process trauma by analyzing it through talking about this genre. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Speaking of the genre, when I was reading through the book, I was just I thought it was really cool how all the different subgenres of science fiction are represented in different ways. There's like a noir element. There's I mentioned the parallel worlds, like high tech satires, even like supernatural, virtual reality, and I even got a little bit of cyberpunk. I think here and there, like the one Vengeance, I think it was, had like the ads on the cloud and all that. I thought that was really fun. But was there? Did you guys like try to balance the approaches to the subgenres, or was there one that you saw authors were more drawn to than others?
No, we didn't, because it was a very new experience, or it was a very new, let's say, experiment or experience. We didn't really go into the intricacies of how specific the genres were. We just gave a general speculative or science fiction genre, and people could take it wherever they wanted. And them coming up with those stories just happened to be those genre. I don't think they set off to be that specific about the genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We didn't. When we sent the call out, because they were all the writers, or a lot of them were writers we'd worked with already, because we've got a database of writers that we worked with, because we did before that the Book of Gaza, so we already had a network of Palestinian writers that we could approach, and pretty much it was a unanimous no. We can't do science fiction. But we asked them again, just try. And a lot of them, or not a lot of them, one of them specifically, Mazen Marouf, he wrote the Mudballs one, which is the craziest one in my opinion. It's the longest one.
So crazy.
The kid,
yeah.
And he said that he came up with this story while he was trying to draft a rejection letter as to how to tell us that he doesn't want to write it. So I don't think in terms of the subgenres, I don't think a lot of thought went into that, because it was a very new territory for the writers, and how it reflected on the writing. It was just a product of their experience and how they used the writing to talk about Palestine.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. I mean, that actually answers another question I had later down the road a little bit about just like the challenge of, you mentioned sci-fi is not normally a genre that Palestinian authors tend to venture into, and so if there was a challenge, and so it sounds like there was a lot of people who were like, I don't think so, but kind of found their way into it. But, so that's it's kind of cool to hear.
Yeah.
So Basma, just turning back to real world events, especially in relation to the sci-fi of all of this, technology is currently playing a big role in the genocide afflicting Gaza, and widely accessible tech like smartphones are allowing for journalists on the ground to document the atrocities in a way we haven't been able to see before. Comparatively poor countries like Yemen are successfully enacting naval blockades against better equipped militaries due to innovative gear like GPS. So, as someone in the science fiction realm, like what are your thoughts on the real world application of technology as a tool of liberation?
I mean, I'm going to just go with the cliche of the whole double-edged sword thing, because also technology, like you said, is being used to as weaponized to commit genocide in Palestine. But what I find most fascinating about things this time around, and you mentioned it, is that Palestinians are reporting their own genocide into their own hands. They've cut out the middleman. They've given up pretty much on the media fairly reporting out Palestine, and the existing technology, the infrastructure of smartphones, combined with social media, combined with all of it, is helping. In this instance, it is helping Palestinians get the word out there and just get the truth out there. That's one side of it. The other side is obviously Palestinians are also being faced by drones with spouting out instructions for them to leave their houses, or which is a very creepy image, which I saw. Yeah. I saw that. I don't know if you saw that video of a drone just hovering in front of the person taking the video, using an automated kind of AI voice saying, evacuate immediately. And it was so creepy. And it just was very futuristic in that sense. Made me think of District 9 a bit. But
yes.
Yeah.
I think technology has, in this instance, helped more than usual in getting the truth out there. And I think it's a matter of time before the world realizes it's being lied to by the governments and media, and they do something about it. I mean, it will probably be too late by then, but I think eventually they will realize they're being lied to because of this technology.
I 100% agree with you. Technology definitely, it's that thing of like liberation and like just goodness finds a way, within the oppression, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely agree with you. And that actually brings me to my next question. Much of the popular dystopian science fiction of the West revolves around struggles that Palestinians suffer on a day-to-day basis. Like you just said, high-tech surveillance, military occupation, forced imprisonment, like these things that are fanciful escapism in Western dystopian fiction is a reality for Palestinians. And I know you spoke about a lot of your writers kind of being apprehensive to even enter the science fiction space, but considering sci-fi is usually used as a cautionary tale of what could happen, with Palestine plus 100, what do you hope people will take away from these stories, since these aren't like, even within the fanciful technology that is like created for these stories, like a lot of the realities that they're depicting are already realities today. So what would you say is the takeaway from like sci-fi from Palestine as opposed to somewhere in the West?
Um,
And also, as a follow-up question, how has that changed, if it has changed at all, since the start of the genocide?
no, it hasn't. If anything, I think it's become more pressing that. So when I'm watching the news, there's a lot of talk about isolated incidents that are happening in Palestine. But there's no talk about the why and bigger context of it. No one's asking the right questions. They're reporting. Sometimes when they're reporting, they're reporting very specific incidents. This man was shot and killed and sent to hospital. They're not saying who did the shooting, why it happened, in reaction to what. There's no context being given. There are no questions being asked. No one's wondering, hang on a second, why are the Palestinians, fighting, bombing Israel? Why are they? Sorry, sending rockets towards Israel? Why are they? You know, they didn't wake up one day and decide, what, I'm going to take up rocket making. I'm bored. I'm going to take up. No one. It's people are resisting against something, and no one's asking what are they resisting against. You're not born someone who's bloodthirsty and wants to kill. So, and obviously the same, I think, applies to the IDF, the Israeli army, but that's there for them to talk about. So, I guess one of the main things I wanted to come out of this collection was for people to look at maybe it won't explain everything that's happening in Palestine, but it will give people a starting point to ask the right questions and understand the intricacies of it. Now, people keep distancing themselves from Palestine. It's complicated. No. Let's stay away from the Middle East. It's not. It's not complicated if you read about it and figure out what's happening. And I felt this book might put people on the right path to ask the right questions. I was hoping it would anyway. And the way every time there's a book out or an article out on Palestine in the mainstream media, it gets a lot of backlash from the Zionist lobby, and they object to it. But with Palestine plus 100, we only got maybe 2 complaints, and they're all to do with the introduction. Because so that and to me that serves the purpose, because the whole reason we suggested science fiction is because you can write whatever you want about a quote unquote imaginary place in an imaginary future that might or might not happen, so you can't really pinpoint anything, if that makes sense, pretty much. So it's just to put people on the right path to ask the right questions about Palestine while enjoying a nicely written story.
Yes, very true. Very, very well written. That's so like that kind of gets to sort of, I think, what we're all kind of talking about here, just like the idea that genre speculative fiction, whether like it's sci-fi or even like fantasy or horror in some capacity, can be used to reflect on and process these like traumas of the past and today. Do you feel like doing something like Palestine plus 100 is just like kind of the first step of that? Do you think that there's like value in kind of digging further into that, presenting like, different views of processing all of everything?
100%. It's like art therapy, in a
Yeah.
way. Uh, the main theme, if you notice in all the stories, or one of the main themes going through, is conflict, or
Mhm.
parallel universes, two sides, or like in Song of the Birds, there's the reality, and then there's the dream that they've been all fogged into. And this is something that Palestinians deal with on a daily basis. I mean, I feel, since I've moved to Manchester, that I live in some kind of alternative reality. I feel like I'm in some kind of VR, because life here is perfect. I know people here probably don't think that, but if you lived in Palestine, that is what you think.
Mm.
I feel, and every time I go and visit Gaza, I mean, I don't know when I'm going to go back again, but every time I was there last year with my kids, I just feel that I'm back to reality. And that would be the story of all Palestinians. You have to reconcile the horrible dystopic reality that's happening on the ground in Palestine, and you have to reconcile it with the life that you then chose to live elsewhere, and then, like glitches throughout, that you'll get flashbacks of things. So I don't know, I'd be driving, I'd be stood at a traffic light, or sorry, in my car at a traffic light, and just in my head, the car in front of me gets hit by a rocket and explodes, and my ears start ringing, and this is just flashbacks to things like that happening in Palestine. Or I'd
Mm.
be in a building and I'd start vividly imagining what it would be like if it just got bombed. It's just, and I think of those like as glitches in the VR system that I'm living in right now, and I feel at any point now I'm going to wake up and be back in Palestine again. And it's just, so the writing helps understand and process all those thoughts and equate them to something like a VR, which kind of then helps the writers or the Palestinian readers understand what they're going through. And I think it's a very powerful tool in that way, if that answers the question.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like just kind of just the use of like metaphor in general too, to kind of like contextualize something that's hard to describe, really.
Yeah, and the idea of taking a tool that was just that was created by the colonialist capitalist side of the world,
Yeah.
and all sci-fi has ever been is dominating new worlds, and fighting the people who live in those worlds, or making them better, and just taking that tool and flipping it on itself in a way, I think, is a very a useful concept.
Oh, for sure. And even just from like a general perspective, like a genre, that's how genres get stale if we don't take that opportunity to flip it or to change it or to introduce new perspectives or like
Agreed.
other new access points for people
Hmm.
into it. It's what these things need. It's why we love them, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I agree with you. That's a very good way of putting it.
And if I can just add, like the perspective is important and matters, like you can kind of tell when like somebody enters the genre space and is kind of cosplaying as oppressed versus actually oppressed. And these real world events definitely inform it. Obviously what's going on now is unprecedented, but it's not it's not necessarily anything new to the people of Gaza and what they've been going through. So like when these stories from this book are told, it's told from a place of like a deep understanding of what these characters might potentially be going through, as opposed to just a thought exercise.
100%.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, Basma. I said we'd kind of stick within under an hour or so, but is there anything you I'll give you a chance to like plug any future projects you got coming, but is there anything else you just wanted to, mention to perhaps our listeners, maybe people who aren't like we talked about the media not really reporting a lot of things in the most accurate way or the most like important ways. Like, is there anything you'd want to share with our listeners, or anything that you'd like them to check out of your, that be coming out from you in the future?
Um, we've got Egypt plus 100s coming up. We've currently got Kurdistan plus 100 that's recently been released just as part of those series. And what I want to tell I mean, what I would advise the listeners, it would be more as just from the perspective of Palestinian, is do some objective research. I mean, we've got so many tools under our fingertips that will help us get to the truth. Read the stories, read some of the stories in Palestine Plus One, and read the intro or read the first story, and then just with an open mind, just ask the right questions if you can, and try and take things that people tell you with a pinch of salt. But definitely do your own research in this day and age. Don't believe what the media tells you.
Absolutely.
Don't fall
Well
for
said.
the hysteria, if that's the right words.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thanks again for being willing to take the time to chat with us. Again, I'll echo the fact that we both loved the book Palestine Plus 100, and anyone listening, highly recommend getting it. I have a physical copy right next to me that I'm excited to start lending out to friends as well, to kind of get more people reading it for sure. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I think to answer one of the questions you sent in your email, I think you said, "What am I watching at the moment?" Was it? I think.
Oh yes, yeah. I almost forgot. You brought it up.
What the fandom?
We have a what the fandom segment that we always do at the very end of our podcast. Just something like low key, a little bit of levity. What are we into at the moment? So it sounds like you have something, Basma.
I do.
What the fandom?
It's weird because I didn't even need to think about that. Sometimes when your brain is just going into overdrive, and you need to just slow it down. And at the moment, I've not been watching anything contemporary or recent. I've just been watching Star Trek Next Generation, and I'm finding that very soothing. And that's really what I wanted to say.
That makes me so happy. I'm a huge Trekkie.
You could not have planned that better, Basma.
Yes.
It's just one of those things, escapism at its best, you know.
Agreed.
Joe is gonna ride that high for a week that you said that.
Well, there you go.
Well, thank you. Khalid, do you have a fandom this week?
I do. Thank you for asking, Joe. And keeping in mind with the spirit of what we've been discussing, candidly, you already know this, Joe, but like for the listeners at home, I've just been glued to TikTok specifically since October, and it's been a source of stress and comfort and everything in between, in the sense that like I've been able to keep as up to date as I can with like reports that are coming out of Gaza. So like with that in mind, my what the fandom this week is going to go out to a few of the on the ground journalists that are informing people when they can of what's going on there as accurately as possible. So that's Bisan and Motaz, as well as a young journalist, Lama Jamus, who's currently trying to get out of Rafah, I believe, and then Mansur Shuman, who, as of this recording, I believe he was no longer considered missing. But as you can understand, like these people are simultaneously citizens of Gaza as well as journalists, and they are doing what they can to keep us informed at the peril of their own lives. And it's like I believe like well over 100 journalists have died since the start of this conflict. So it's like truly the most dangerous job in the world, I think, just statistically.
Bisan is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love her. She's so good.
Truly, like there are murals of these people around the world at this point, and it's like deserve what they're doing is historic. And then my last with the fandom, kind of in conjunction with this, is actually an American TikToker who goes by the name Angie, and she is conducting something called Operation Flip the Rhythm or Operation Watermelon, in which she has a like large following, and they are doing coordinated commenting or digital wheat pasting, as they call it, on popular influencers and celebrities Instagrams. So for example, this weekend the Super Bowl happened, and they were able to flip the algorithm so that all the discussion in the comment section of things about like the NFL, the Chiefs, the 49ers, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, all of their comment sections were filled with comments about Bisan, Motaz, Palestine. And the whole point was that eventually the algorithm would make the top search. For example, Rafa Super Bowl was trending on TikTok.
Oh, wow.
And Instagram. And it just really speaks to what Palestine 1+100 touches on, and what we've been discussing about this intersection of technology and liberation. And I mean, me and Joe, I can't speak to how old you are, Basma, but I would assume like you kind of also grew up through like the onset of social media to now. And like, while social media has played a big role in liberation movements of the past, it's kind of also been like used to snuff out liberation movements. I can think of like BLM, Black Lives Matter, while being helped by social media, also was ultimately hindered by it in the way that we just kind of move past trends.
Yeah.
So I just feel like we're at the precipice of this new landscape with something like Operation Watermelon, where we're able to use these algorithmic shenanigans to our benefit. And it's just so fascinating, and people should be aware of it because it's history in the making.
It's not impossible. It's not impossible to crack them, honestly. Like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are my what the fandoms this week. Joe, what the fandom with you?
Thanks for asking, Khalid. Mine is much less cool. I feel like yours was a really, really well broken down, like thoughtful piece. I just have a silly one.
It won't be worse than Star Trek. So don't.
Star Trek is great. Well, I haven't had a lot of spare time to be like watching a lot of things, but I just wanted to shout out. I did get a chance a couple weeks ago to go to an early screening of the new movie Lisa Frankenstein from Diablo Cody and Zelda Williams. I know it's not. I know a lot of movies out right now aren't getting the best reviews from someplace, but I thought it was kind of a cool, really like just innovative little story with like echoes of like horror and monster stuff, some fun practical effects, just some cool themes. There's some good humor to it and some strange, macabre, weird silliness going on. If you like Jennifer's Body, it's kind of in line with some of that. And I got to write a review for Twin Cities Geek for it, which I enjoyed. I wrote a positive review, so I will post that in the show notes as well. But I would recommend. It's just nice to see something kind of unique and original in the theaters when we often do see a lot of like franchise material coming out. So I wanted to support that and show some support for some cool original ideas like that. So mine would be Lisa Frankenstein this week.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Basma. This was such an amazing conversation. Joe, thank you for setting this up. You're always getting amazing guests for the show, but like when you told me we were going to be able to talk to Basma and about this book and everything that's going on, I was elated. Feels wrong given the circumstances and what's going on, but like I was eager to be able to just kind of candidly speak about this and hear about this from someone so directly impacted and involved with everything. So again, thank you to both of you for this discussion.
Of course. Thank you, Khalid, too.
And thank you all at home for listening to another awesome episode of Frankenstein's podcast. Until next time, creep it easy.